Imagine for a moment that you are facing one of life's most delicate decisions, what to do when age advances and independence seems to become a growing challenge. It's natural that, in this moment, our minds turn to those we love, our children, as a seemingly obvious and comfortable solution. After all, don't they owe us this? Isn't that what family means? Napoleon Hill, the great thinker who taught us about the power of the mind and the importance of personal independence, had a revolutionary perspective on this issue. For him, living with your children in old age wasn't just a logistical or financial decision. It was a decision that could determine the quality of your final years and, more profoundly, the emotional legacy you would leave for future generations. Have you ever stopped to think that by making this seemingly natural decision, you might be creating a pattern of dependency that goes far beyond the physical? That you might be undermining not only your own self-esteem, but also altering the family dynamic in a way that no one expected. When Hill spoke about success and personal fulfillment, he always emphasized the importance of mental and emotional autonomy. He believed that every human being possesses a unique potential that must be preserved and cultivated until their last breath. Living with your children in old age, according to his perspective, represents a dangerous reversal of this philosophy, a premature surrender of one's own personal power. But this isn't a matter of pride or stubbornness. It's about understanding that by giving up your independence, you aren't just changing your address. You are fundamentally altering the way you see yourself and how you are seen by others. You are moving from being the protagonist to a supporting character in your own story. The first reason why this decision can become a serious mistake is related to what Hill called a positive mental attitude. When you move into your children's home, you are unconsciously sending a powerful message to your subconscious. I am no longer capable of taking care of myself. This message, repeated daily through small gestures and situations, begins to shape your identity in a devastating way. Think about it. Every morning you wake up in a room that isn't yours, every decision about what to eat that needs to be negotiated, every schedule that needs to be adjusted to the rhythms of someone else's house, even if it's your own child's house, you are reinforcing a mental pattern of dependency and inability. Your brain, which for decades was trained to solve problems and make decisions, starts to settle into this new reality of passivity. Napoleon Hill always emphasized that our thoughts become our reality. If you start to see yourself as someone who needs to be cared for, who can no longer make their own decisions, who depends on the goodwill of others for basic needs, you are literally reprogramming your mind for fragility and dependence. But there's something even more subtle and dangerous happening. When you live with your children, you inevitably revert, to some degree, to the role of a child again. The natural dynamic is that they start to take care of you, to make decisions for you, to worry about your well-being in a way that completely inverts the roles you played for decades. This inversion isn't just logistical, it's profoundly psychological. You, who were for so long the figure of authority, the person they ran to for advice and protection, now find yourself in the position of receiving care and guidance. This shift can be devastating to your self-esteem and sense of purpose. What's most worrying is that this process usually happens gradually and almost imperceptibly. You don't wake up one day and decide, "Today I'm going to give up my autonomy." No, it happens through small daily concessions, little, "let me do that for yous." Small moments where you choose the easier path instead of maintaining your independence. The second fundamental reason Napoleon Hill would identify as problematic is the devastating impact this decision can have on your children, even when they themselves suggest or willingly accept it. You might be thinking, "But they invited me. They want to help me." And that may be true, but Hill always taught us to look beyond appearances and consider the long-term consequences of our actions. When your children take on the role of caregivers, they are forced to deal with a responsibility for which they may not be emotionally prepared. As much as they love you, as much as they genuinely want to help, this new dynamic creates pressures and stresses that can deeply affect their family relationships, their marriages, their relationship with their own children. Think about your son or daughter who now has to negotiate with their spouse about the needs of a third adult in the house. Think about the pressure this puts on the family budget, on the couple's privacy, on the grandchildren's upbringing. You may be inadvertently becoming a source of conflict in a family that was once harmonious. But there is an even deeper dimension to this issue. Hill always spoke about the importance of each person maintaining their own journey of personal growth. When your children become your caregivers, they may be sacrificing important aspects of their own development. They may be postponing dreams, limiting career opportunities, restricting their freedom to make spontaneous decisions about their own lives. And here is something that few parents can see clearly. By accepting being cared for by your children, you may be depriving them of the opportunity to develop a mature and balanced adult relationship with you. Instead of being the wise counselor they can turn to when they need you, you become a constant responsibility, a daily concern that takes up significant mental and emotional space. There is also a matter of behavioral modeling that is rarely considered. Your grandchildren are observing this dynamic and learning about what it means to grow old, what family means, about responsibility and independence. What message are you sending them? That when we get old, we become a burden to our family. That old age is synonymous with dependency and loss of dignity. Napoleon Hill often emphasized that one of the greatest tragedies in human life is when a person stops growing, when they accept that their best days are behind them. And here we come to the third crucial reason. Living with your children in old age can represent a premature declaration that your productive and growth phase has come to an end. When you move into your children's house, you are, in a way, declaring to yourself and to the world that there is nothing more to discover, create, or conquer. You are saying that your role now is simply to be cared for, maintained, preserved. But Hill taught us that human beings have unlimited potential at any age, as long as they keep their minds active and their spirits independent. Think about the possibilities that close when you give up your independence. Think about the projects you will no longer start because it's not worth it anymore. The relationships you will no longer cultivate because I live at my son's house now. The experiences you will no longer seek because you have conditioned yourself to believe that your life is now reduced to being cared for. There is a vital energy that comes from the ability to make your own decisions, to solve your own problems, to face your own challenges. When you transfer these responsibilities to others, even with the best intentions, you are literally draining this energy from your life. Hill always spoke about the importance of having a definite purpose, a reason to get out of bed every morning. When you live at your children's house, what becomes your purpose? Often, unconsciously, your purpose becomes not to be a bother, not to cause too much trouble, to be grateful for what they're doing for me. But that is not a purpose. That is just existing passively. The truth is that independence in old age is not just a practical matter, it's a matter of mental and emotional health. Studies consistently show that seniors who maintain their autonomy live longer, are happier, and have better physical and mental health. This is no coincidence. It is the natural result of maintaining a sense of control over one's own life. When you maintain your own home, even if it's smaller, simpler, you also maintain your kingdom. You maintain the right to decide what to eat for breakfast, what show to watch on television, what time to go to sleep, what music to listen to. These may seem like small decisions, but they are what make up the texture of personal autonomy. The fourth reason Hill would identify as fundamental is related to what he called the mental environment. He always insisted that the environment we live in profoundly shapes our thoughts, our emotions, and consequently our reality. When you live in your children's house, you are living in an environment that was not created by you, that does not reflect your choices, your tastes, your personality. This may seem superficial, but think deeply about what it means. Every object around you, every color on the walls, every sound you hear, every scent you smell, all of this is constantly sending messages to your subconscious. In your children's house, these messages are not yours. You are constantly being reminded in a subliminal way that this is not your space, that you are a permanent visitor in a world that belongs to others. Hill understood that our mind needs a personal sanctuary, a place where we can reconnect with ourselves, where we can process our thoughts and emotions without external interference. When you don't have that space, when even your room is grandma's room or grandpa's room in someone else's house, you lose a fundamental part of your identity. There is also the issue of personal rhythms. Each person has their own biological rhythm, their own habits, their own preferences on how to structure the day. In your children's house, you inevitably have to adapt to the family's rhythms. If you are a morning person but the house wakes up late, you have to adjust. If you like quiet at night but the family has evening activities, you have to accommodate. These constant adjustments, while they may seem small, create a chronic stress that deeply affects your mental and physical health. You are constantly in a state of adaptation, never completely relaxed, never completely at home. And this takes an emotional toll that is often only noticed after it has already caused significant damage. Napoleon Hill always emphasized the importance of maintaining control over our environment as a way to maintain control over our mind. When you live in someone else's environment, even if it's someone you love deeply, you are constantly being influenced by energies, moods, and dynamics that are not yours. You can unconsciously absorb the stresses, worries, and conflicts of the family that hosts you. Imagine the psychological impact of witnessing arguments between your son and daughter-in-law, or of hearing conversations about financial difficulties that might be related to your presence in the house. Even if nothing is said directly, you feel the tension, you notice the looks, you pick up on what's between the lines. The fifth reason Hill would consider crucial is the devastating impact this decision can have on your ability to maintain healthy and balanced relationships with your own children. There is a complex psychological dynamic that develops when the parent-child relationship transforms into a caregiver-dependent one. And this transformation rarely happens without significant emotional consequences. When you become dependent on your children's care, a power dynamic inevitably arises that can erode the intimacy and mutual respect you have built over the years. As loving as they may be, your children start to see you in a different light. You cease to be the source of wisdom and strength and become someone who needs protection and care. This change in perception can be devastating for both sides. You may start to feel like a burden, even when no one says it explicitly. You may start to interpret every gesture of tiredness, every sigh of frustration, every moment of silence as signs that your presence is an inconvenience. And honestly, sometimes you might be right in that perception. Hill always spoke about the importance of maintaining relationships based on mutual respect and a balanced exchange. When you become dependent on your children's care, that balance tips dangerously to one side. You begin to receive much more than you can offer, and this creates a dynamic of guilt and resentment that can contaminate the entire family relationship. On the other hand, your children may start to develop ambivalent feelings towards you. As much as they love you, as much as they want to help, they are human beings with their own limitations, stresses, and needs. When caring for you becomes a constant responsibility, they may start to feel trapped, limited in their own lives. And here is something that few parents can accept. It is possible to love someone deeply and at the same time feel overwhelmed by the responsibility of caring for that person. Your children may be experiencing exactly this emotional conflict, but they may never express it out of guilt, love, or a sense of duty. This unresolved conflict can manifest in various ways: irritability, emotional distance, superficial conversations, avoiding spending quality time together. The relationship that was once a source of joy and connection can become a source of tension and obligation, and that is an irreparable loss for everyone involved. Napoleon Hill understood that the healthiest relationships are those where each person maintains their independence and contributes to the relationship from their own strength, not from their need. The sixth profound reason Hill would identify relates to what he called the mastermind, the powerful energy that arises when independent and fulfilled people come together by choice, not by necessity. When you live with your children out of dependency, you fundamentally alter the energetic quality of those family interactions. Think of the difference between your children and grandchildren visiting because they miss you and want to spend time with you, versus seeing them every day because you share the same roof out of necessity. In the first case, there is anticipation, joy, new things to share. In the second, there is routine, obligation, and inevitably moments of tension that are natural when adults constantly share the same space. Hill always emphasized that our personal energy is one of our most precious resources. When you live in dependency, a large part of your mental and emotional energy is focused on not being a bother, on being grateful, on not complaining. This leaves little room for you to be genuinely yourself, with your opinions, your moods, your legitimate needs. There is also a fundamental issue of legacy and a model for aging. Hill believed that each person has a responsibility to be a positive example for future generations. When you choose dependency over creative independence in old age, what model are you offering your grandchildren? What message are you sending about what it means to age with dignity? Your grandchildren are forming their own beliefs about aging based on what they observe. If they see you as someone who needed to be rescued by the family, who can no longer take care of themselves, who has become a constant worry, they may develop unnecessary fears about their own future old age. On the other hand, imagine the power of the example of a grandfather or grandmother who maintains their independence, who continues to grow, learn, and contribute to society even in advanced age. Imagine the pride your grandchildren would feel telling their friends about you. My grandpa is 80 years old and still lives alone, still drives, still has his projects. Hill understood that true success in life is not measured only by what we achieve during our productive years, but also by how we choose to live our final years. Old age can be a period of decline and dependency, or it can be a period of wisdom, contribution, and inspiring example. The choice is yours, but it needs to be made consciously, not by default or out of fear. Many people choose to live with their children not because it's what they truly want, but because they are afraid of being alone, afraid of not being able to take care of themselves, afraid of facing the natural challenges of aging. The seventh fundamental reason Napoleon Hill would highlight is intrinsically linked to the concept of self-love and self-respect. When you decide to live with your children, you may be unconsciously sending a message to yourself that you do not deserve or are not capable of having a full and independent life. This message, repeated daily through small surrenders of autonomy, can progressively erode your self-esteem in a way you don't even notice. Hill always taught that our internal dialogue determines our external reality. If you start to see yourself as someone who can't anymore, who needs help with everything, who is a burden to the family, you are literally programming your mind for fragility and incapacity. And the most dangerous part is that this programming becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Think about it. Every time you stop doing something you could do on your own because it's easier to let them do it, you are reinforcing a mental pattern of inability. Every time you don't express an opinion because you don't want to cause trouble, you are diminishing your own voice. Every time you passively accept decisions that affect your life, you are training your mind for submission. True self-love, according to Hill, involves having the courage to maintain your dignity and independence, even when it means facing greater challenges. It means choosing the harder but more honorable path of maintaining your autonomy instead of accepting the apparent ease of dependency. There is a profound difference between needing occasional help and completely abdicating your independence. All of us, at any age, need help sometimes, but there is a clear line between asking for help when necessary and transferring total responsibility for your life to other people. When you maintain your own home, even if you need help with some tasks, you remain the protagonist of your own story. You continue to make the important decisions, maintain control over your environment, and preserve your dignity as an independent adult. This preservation of autonomy is an act of profound self-love. Hill also understood that self-respect manifests through the choices we make, especially the difficult ones. Choosing to maintain your independence in old age, even if it means making adjustments, adaptations, and seeking creative alternatives, is a demonstration that you still value yourself as a capable and worthy person. On the other hand, Choosing dependency can be a subtle form of self-punishment or self-sabotage. It can be a way of confirming limiting beliefs about aging that you have internalized over the years. It can be a way of giving up on yourself before it's truly necessary. The eighth crucial reason Hill would identify is related to the impact of this decision on your ability to continue contributing to the world in a meaningful way. He always believed that every human being has unique talents and a special mission in life, and that this mission doesn't simply end because we reach a certain age. When you move into your children's house and assume a passive role of a cared-for person, you may be inadvertently closing important chapters of your contribution to society. You may be wasting decades of experience, wisdom, and perspective that could benefit other people. Think of all the lessons you've learned, all the mistakes you've made and overcome, all the victories you've achieved. This life baggage is an invaluable treasure that could be shared with younger generations, with people who are facing challenges similar to those you have already overcome. But when you put yourself in a position of dependency, you diminish your credibility as a mentor and advisor. Hill understood that a sense of purpose and usefulness is fundamental to mental and physical health at any age. When you stop seeing yourself as someone who has something valuable to offer the world, when your identity is reduced to someone who needs care, you are depriving yourself of one of the greatest sources of satisfaction and meaning in human life. There is a vital energy that comes from the feeling that we are still useful, that our presence in the world still makes a difference. This energy is like an elixir of youth. It keeps our minds sharp, our bodies more active, our spirits more vibrant. When you give up this energy in favor of the convenience of dependency, you are accelerating your own decline. Consider also the financial impact of this decision, not just on your children's budget, but on your own ability to contribute economically. When you maintain your independence, you can continue to generate economic value through consulting, mentoring, small businesses, or even part-time work. You can continue to be an active contributor to the economy instead of just becoming a dependent. Hill always spoke about the importance of maintaining multiple sources of satisfaction and purpose in life. When you live with your children, many of these sources naturally diminish. You might stop cultivating friendships with people your own age because I stay home more now. You might stop participating in community activities because it's complicated with the house routine. You might stop seeking new learning because what for at this age? But the truth is that these activities and connections are exactly what maintain our mental and emotional vitality. They are what give us reasons to get dressed in the morning, to leave the house, to stay current with the world. The ninth and perhaps most profound reason that Napoleon Hill would identify as fundamental is related to the emotional and energetic inheritance you will leave for future generations. This is not just a question of how you will live your last years, but about the permanent legacy your choices will create in the memory and psyche of your descendants. When you choose courageous independence in old age, even in the face of the natural challenges of aging, you are creating a powerful narrative of dignity, strength, and wisdom. Your children and grandchildren will forever carry the memory of someone who faced old age with courage, who refused to surrender prematurely, who maintained their vibrant essence until the end. Hill understood that the most powerful memories we keep of our loved ones are not necessarily from the easiest moments, but from the moments when they demonstrated strength, character, and dignity in the face of adversity. When you choose to maintain your independence, you are offering your family the opportunity to be truly proud of you, not just to love you. There is a fundamental difference between being remembered as someone who needed to be cared for versus being remembered as someone who faced life's challenges with courage until the end. The first memory, though filled with love, may be marked by feelings of pity, sadness, and even relief when the suffering ends. The second memory is marked by admiration, pride, and inspiration. Consider the lasting psychological impact on your children. When they themselves reach old age, they will remember your example. If you chose dependency, they might unconsciously accept that old age is synonymous with decline and loss of dignity. If you chose courageous independence, they will have a powerful model of how to age with grace and strength. For your grandchildren, this example can be even more transformative. At an age when they are forming their fundamental beliefs about life, they are observing how you choose to face one of the most challenging phases of human existence. They are learning about courage, dignity, self-love, and perseverance through your example. Hill always insisted that our greatest legacy is not the material possessions we leave behind, but the mental and emotional patterns we pass on to the next generations. When you choose to live independently in old age, you are transmitting a powerful message: that life is worth living fully to the end, that every human being has intrinsic value that must be preserved, that personal dignity is more important than convenience. The 10th and final reason is perhaps the simplest and at the same time the most profound. You deserve to live your life to the fullest until the end, not just exist. You deserve to continue being the protagonist of your own story, not to become a secondary character in someone else's story, even if it's someone you love deeply. Napoleon Hill taught us that every moment of life is an opportunity for growth, contribution, and fulfillment. Choosing courageous independence in old age is choosing to continue living, not just surviving. It is a declaration that your life still has value, purpose, and potential, no matter how many candles are on your next birthday cake.